Next up, we have 1 p.m. Eastern. Baltimore Ravens 7-3, 4-1 on the road. Jacksonville Jaguars 3-7, 2-3 home. We're at TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville, Florida. 72 Fahrenheit, partly cloudy, 12 miles per hour. We'll go over to the line history in this one. Baltimore, Jacksonville. We have, get this going. We have Baltimore opening up at -3.5 at -106. They've taken 9 cents, but that hasn't always been the case. It opened with a bunch of money moving on Baltimore, and then it came back. Then there was Jacksonville money, and you could have got today at 4:41 p.m. You could have got Baltimore -3.5 at -103, which means it wouldn't have been too expensive to get them at -3. But it's back to them being juiced at -115. From a totals perspective, it opened up at 45.5. It's dropped 2 points to 43.5. And when we take a look at the cash flow here, we have slight line value on the Ravens, 2,887 tickets in, 68% of the tickets, 91% of the cash on the Ravens, and then 96% of the tickets on the under, and we don't have a cash flow yet on that one. Ravens come in off an underwhelming 13-3 win at home over Carolina, now won 4 straight, 12-3 under Harbaugh after a bye. Ravens have had the lead in every game this season by double-digit points at some point, which is just a wild stat. Lamar Jackson, 24-33, 209 yards, ran 11 times for 31 yards and a touchdown. Demarcus Robinson caught 9 for 128. Mark Andrews returned to the lineup and looked strong, 6 catches for 63. And Harbaugh still waiting for Deshaun Jackson to fully recover from the hamstring injury he suffered in his Week 9 debut. There was talk that Gus Edwards would return to the lineup, but he remained out. So he said Harbaugh said that Gus wanted to go, and that Harbaugh kept him out. Kenyon Drake led the ground game with 10 carries for 46 yards. Baltimore had rushed for at least 158 straight, longest streak since 85 Bears, and Carolina held them to 115. They held the Panthers to just 205 total yards. Panthers 3-12 on third down, improved their turnover margin, this Baltimore Ravens team, to +9. They have at least one takeaway in 12 straight games. 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits. JPP and Marlon Humphrey had picks. Their rookie safety, Kyle Hamilton, left in the third quarter with a knee injury. Their tackle, Ronnie Stanley, left with an ankle problem. Both are trending to play. Both are expected to be back, and Rashad Bateman underwent successful surgery for his season-ending foot injury. Jaguars come in fresh off their bye week. They dropped 6 of 7. They were last seen that 27-17 loss at KC. Lawrence went 29-40 for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kirk caught 9 for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs were just what they've been doing week in and week out, putting up 480-plus yards. The Chiefs were 7-10 on third down. We expected – I would love to hear your thoughts on this Jacksonville defense, because we expected them to be much stronger. Devin Lloyd started out the season by winning Rookie of the Month in September, and he was benched back-to-back games. Chad Muma took over more snaps. Then you have Trayvon Walker, 2.5 sacks, and not being very good. Shaquille Griffin, the highest-paid player on their team, on injured reserve with a back issue. Jaguars are 27th in the league with 16 sacks, and they spent so much money on their front. I mean, you have Fadukasi, Oluokin, Arden Key. Those deals alone were $75 million. They've allowed 10 pass plays, gaining at least 25 yards in their last 5 games. They're just not nearly as strong as we expected. And shout out to our Big Show picks, giving out gifting a Pub Sports membership, and Terry Walker grabbing it. I love that. Take it away for us here. Are you surprised the Ravens are such small favorites against the Jaguars, or do you think the Jaguars are a sneaky home dog here coming off the bye?
Yeah, and a couple of people in the chat are bringing up the Ravens run game. That is the real fly in the ointment for me, because from a pure power number standpoint, Baltimore Ravens are the 3rd best team in the AFC for me, and they're not all that far behind the Bills and the Chiefs, honestly. And if they got fully healthy, they would be a very big threat to either of those teams to win in the playoffs. They have a dynamic quarterback. They have probably just as good of a coach as either of those teams, and they're an experienced squad. The injuries to the running backs have been troubling, and I know they don't have the most dynamic receiving core. Mark Andrews is a big help for that, though. Having a big tight end, getting him back healthy is important. It is a road game. Jacksonville is off the bye, but even if we give them some credit for that, I can't get this to 3.5. I still have Baltimore favored by like 5 here. The big problem is just the matchup part, and if they have to rely on Lamar the passer, things could go a little problematic. So I'm tempted by Baltimore because I do have them high in my rankings. I do have them, higher up over the last 5 games, higher up. And, as somebody said back in the chat, I'd have to scroll back a little. The only team to beat Baltimore is Baltimore. Like that Miami game, they were crushing, and then they just let them back in. And that, kudos to Miami and what they're able to do on the offense too. But yeah, I've kind of just been stayed away from I've kind of just been tempted to stay away from all Jacksonville games. I had them a lot higher in my power rankings to start the season. I was slower to adjust. They cost me some money, and like you said, it's similar to the teams we say, oh my God, the Jets defense is way better than we thought. Like, holy Lord, like this is a really good squad. Like that happens every year where people surprise both ways though. And this Jags defense, despite the money they spent, despite the draft capital they spent, it has been poor. And just pointing out, this was another conversation that I had this morning with someone. Kyle Hamilton sucked during the beginning of the season. Coaching matters. They were using him improperly. Ben Solak pointed that out to me. He said they were using him. He sucked because they were using him at free safety, but they have a smart enough coaching staff where they moved him around, got him in the position he should be in, and he's playing much better. Like it's a team that doesn't just draft well, but they develop well, and they're getting better as the season goes on. On a neutral, I'd make Baltimore like 7. So I'm tempted to play it. I'm just a little sketched out by probably the injuries to these running backs. I may add this one later in the week, especially if we get some cheap 3.5s.
Do you have interest in the total at all here before we move on to afternoon games?
No, that's pretty fair. The totals have really shaped up well this week.
Yeah. And the totals have been a huge moneymaker for me, much better than sides, but I'm hesitant right now. So maybe a possible move for you on the Ravens here. Okay. All right. Let's move on to afternoon action